Anyone who's ever done anything worth doing has dreamed big, failed mightily, and mostly started from humble beginnings. This is a podcast about such people. The most fascinating podcast in the world is fascinating because of the stories of the human beings. Hello, everybody. It's Pat DeCerbo. Today, the most fascinating podcast in the world, not because of me, but because of the people who agree to come on the show. Today, I have Jason Nolf. Jason is a nationally known and internationally known wrestler. He is an American folk style wrestler, one of the best ever, with a career record of 117-3. And he has wrestled internationally and has had great success around the world and domestically in freestyle subsequent to his college career. And welcome, Jason. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it,
My
Pat.
pleasure. So we talked a little bit beforehand, and I just wondered, what are your earliest memories that when you were a little kid? Where did you grow up, and what do you remember from early on?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in uh, Western Pennsylvania. Um, Most of my childhood was just filled with, hanging out with my family and my cousins, playing a bunch of different games in the backyard. All of our cousins pretty much lived within a mile and a half of each other, so we just play wiffle ball or backyard football or anything like that. That was pretty much what I until I really started training wrestling. Like, and even after I started, that was the majority of the time I spent on my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, and just hanging out with my cousins playing sports.
Are you still close with your extended family? You stay in touch, or?
I would say that I'm close with them, but we don't talk a lot just because I'm traveling a lot and I've been training a lot, so I don't go home very much. But I would say we're still close. Yeah.
Got it. How did you originally get introduced to the sport of wrestling?
My dad just took me to wrestling practice because I think that I had a lot of energy as a kid, and he wanted me to kind of use that energy in a better way. And I think that my dad never really wrestled, but he took me to wrestling practice, and then I just told him that I liked it, even though I didn't really like it that much. And then we just kept going back, uh, week after week, and just got really good at it.
When you think in terms of wrestling, I was a wrestler, a moderately successful high school wrestler, and people ask if I liked it. And I often say, like, I liked it, but it was extremely difficult, and it was more of a sense of satisfaction. Not like I liked it, ha ha, it's fun. How do you think about wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, I always I just love scoring points. That's the most fun part for me. Everything else, driving an hour and a half each way to practice, cutting weight, not getting to eat like other normal people. That stuff all uh, isn't fun, but it's part of the sacrifice that you need to be able to score more points and and be better at it. So I'm very grateful for wrestling and everything that it's taught me in my life, and it created so many opportunities for me because I had great parents and great family and great practice partners and great coaches. I've really kind of set wrestling's allowed me to be successful, in my life, and kind of set up many opportunities for me.
That's great.
I like training now. I like going into the NLWC and training. I think that's
Mm.
fun. I don't have to drive an hour and a half each way to practice, and I don't, practices aren't super long, so it's very enjoyable for me. But when I was in high school, it wasn't very
Mm.
much.
And you don't have to cut weight these days, eh? For practice.
I had to cut weight, yeah, but not as often. Yeah, 74 kilos was a pretty big cut for me, but I shrunk my body for this last Olympic trials, and So it wasn't as bad, but in general, it's a pretty big cut.
What's your natural body weight? How much weight is that?
Before I shrunk my body, I was about 185, and but I just prayed to God to help me bring my weight down, and I made some natural adjustments as well, and I was walking around like 174, 175.
Mm-hmm. And forgive me, I should know the number, but 74 kilos is how many pounds? Mm-hmm.
163.
It's a pretty massive weight cut.
Yeah, for me, I don't get really fat either. I just like stay like pretty lean, and I put on muscle. So it's 20 pounds for me is a lot different than 20 pounds for most other people.
Mm-hmm.
But I made it happen, and we did it the right way. Obviously, we have Coach Calvita from Training Lab out in California that does all my nutrition and weight cuts, and then my wife Maddie was helping prepare me meals and kind of taking care of me in that way. So made it a lot easier having those two people.
So before we talk more about wrestling, you did other sports, track and cross country. What do you remember about those sports?
Yeah, I actually played baseball until I was in seventh
Okay.
grade, and I just had a lot of fun playing baseball because it was a lot more relaxed. I still wanted to win. If we didn't win, I would
Mm.
cry. Um, I've wanted to win in everything I do, but baseball was more fun. Just hanging out with my school friends because wrestling. A lot of my school friends didn't wrestle because the good clubs were so far away. So baseball was really fun, and then I started running cross country my junior year of high school, and that was mainly to get in shape for wrestling season, but also just do something different with like a different group of
Mm-hmm.
friends, which I think like sports are really good just for like making friends and hanging out with people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was what I liked about cross country because wrestling is so serious almost. Um, and it doesn't have to be, but like for me at that time it was so serious, and to go do another sport where like there wasn't as much like pressure and you didn't have to cut weight and everything, like yeah, it actually helped you if you ate food. And um, I think that was really fun. And then my senior year I did cross country and track, and I did like the 4x800, and I did the mile, and I did pole vaulting actually. And I liked yeah, same thing with that. Was there a different group of people doing track than there was doing cross country too? So I just wanted to hang out with like more friends and do different things that weren't so serious. So I think that's why I did those
Mm-hmm.
sports.
So in high school or middle school and then high school, what do you remember about sort of national competitions when you started to get serious about wrestling, like tournaments like Fargo and stuff like that? Did you compete in those or?
I never did Fargo. No, um, when I was competing a lot, probably since I was like 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old. A tournament every weekend, going and doing duels, uh, doing two weight classes or two age groups, and yeah, so I always just competed a lot, and I always did the biggest tournaments. So, aside from I never wrestled freestyle, so but I always did like the biggest folk styles tournaments. I did Super 32 um, in high school twice. The first time I lost my second match, and then I wrestled like 8 matches back to get third. And then the second year that I went, um, I won it. So I think that excuse me. I think that wrestling in big tournaments like that just help you continue to push yourself and refine yourself and get better. Because if you're always just wrestling guys that you're going to beat, then and that there's no risk of losing, then you're never really going to really make much gains. But if you're constantly wrestling guys that are the best in the country, you're going to get better if you want to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
If you're okay with them beating you, then you're not going to get better. But I wanted to win everything, so
Mm-hmm. Do you have any memorable high school matches against maybe well-known college wrestlers that?
I wrestled Darian Cruz my freshman year at 103 in the semis, and I won an ultimate ride out. So that was a pretty big win because he was ranked really high in the country, and I wasn't. I was maybe ranked 14th at that time or something. Um, and then I wrestled Ryan Deal my sophomore year in the semis, and he beat me. That was my only loss in high school.
Mm,
And then aside from that, I think those were like the. Um, I wrestled a kid, Nicky Roberts, um, who was really really good wrestler. Um, and I beat him in Ultimate Rideout too, and he was probably number one in the country. Um, but yeah, I mean those are the probably like the top three matches that I had, like the tightest matches that I had in high school, and were the
mm.
toughest.
So, how did it come to pass that you went to Penn State? What was the initial contact like, and how did they meet you, and so on and so forth?
Coach Kale just came to. I was doing a I was doing a young guns camp at UPJ with Jody, and Coach Kale showed up because I think it was whenever you could start doing home visits, but I wasn't at
What's
home,
UPJ,
and he
just for
showed
me and everyone?
one of the best D2
Okay.
colleges in the country, University of Pittsburgh at
Okay. Thank
Johnstown.
you.
That's like where all my that's where Jody went, John went before they went to Iowa, and then Isaac Greeley, one of my other coaches, and a lot of other really good wrestlers have wrestled at UPJ. Like Cody Law went there, but Coach Kale showed up, um, and he was just kind of waiting in the office, and I didn't really want to go in and talk to him because I like at that point I never thought about going to college. Like I knew I was going to go to college, but I didn't really care to do any research or talk to any coaches. Like when I on whenever the date was, July 1st or something, I was at Disney Duels like the first time people could call, and I didn't really pick up any of my calls. I just like I was so like laser focused on what I was doing then, and I was just trying to like get better and win the state tournament. I didn't really care like to look forward to college as much, and I didn't like stress about that or worry about it or anything. Um, but so I ended up going in and talking with Coach Kale, and I accidentally like kept yawning during the meeting, and I felt bad because I didn't want to like disrespect him, but I don't know, like sometimes you just yawn,
Yeah, when you're nervous
and
sometimes. Were you nervous, you think, or no?
I wasn't nervous, no, but I don't know, maybe I was tired or
Mm-hmm.
something. Um, Maybe I was a little nervous. I don't remember, but yeah, I just remember he met with me there, and then I was like, nothing really got decided. He just like talked to me, said that he wanted me to go there, and then I think he had called me maybe one more time, and I went out to Stanford because in my head I wanted to go to Stanford at that point, and so we took an unofficial visit, and my dad like got sick on the way over, and um, I think I had like cauliflower ear that I just got drained. So I had like a head wrap on and stuff. And we went out there, and my dad didn't love it. I think he was like kind of sick, and I didn't think that he liked it because it was so far away. And at that point they cared more. They weren't at, I guess their administration wasn't like maybe as supportive of wrestling because they still had like an old wrestling room, and their facilities weren't great, like where they competed. But they have really good facilities, and um, you know it seems like they've taken more action to grow their wrestling program. But at the time, I was like, okay, they were showing me all these trophies from other sports, and I'm like, well, where are the wrestling trophies? So I wanted to go somewhere. I still probably would have gone there, but um, there was one kid that I was with, and he was saying, "Well, why would you go to like, yeah, all these guys are going to Penn State. Why would you go to Penn State? You don't even know if you're going to start. If you come here, you'll start right away." And I was just like, "I want to be a four-time national champ, so I'm going to start wherever I go." And and then kind of like I didn't like that mindset that they had, Um, so I ended up deciding not to go there, and it was far away. There wasn't, other things that factored into it were that it wasn't on TV as much, like as the Big Ten. Like the Big Ten network had all the Penn State matches. They had sold out crowds. So one day, my dad was just basically like, "Hey, you got to make a decision, or you're going to be homeless on the street." And I said, "All right, I'm just going to go to Penn State." So I didn't even take a visit to Penn State before I committed. I just called Coach Kell and told him that I was coming, kind of randomly out of the blue, and it was a good guess, I guess.
That's fascinating. Like we come to these forks in the road, and if you took the one fork, you'd be doing something different, and you took the fork you took, and I don't know. I'm just an observer looking from the outside in, but seems like it almost couldn't have worked out better.
Yeah, I mean, God, it's all
Hmm.
God. He has a plan for me, and he's leading me along the path that He wants me to be on, and um, I'm just trying to stay faithful and do what He wants me to do. So I'm just so I don't really. I get stressed sometimes, but I don't really worry a lot.
Have you always been deeply faithful?
No, I would say I believed in God when I was younger, but I never really pursued that or anything. And I think part of it was just not knowing about it. I think there's a lot of people that like know the idea of God, but they don't really know about the relationship they that God wants to have with us. And I learned about that a lot when I got to college at Penn State, and I met my wife and some of my friends there. We started going to Bible study, and then at that point, um, I realized that it's not just this God that's just up in the air and is kind of separate from us. It's more about having a relationship with Him and um, praying to Him. Praying is like just talking to God, and you know I think that's a something that people just don't understand, and because they don't understand it, they don't pursue it as much.
Hmm.
I think people are open to it. They just don't really know where to get started. So I would say, like, if you're listening to this and you don't really know like where to get started, you can just like for me, it was finding people that are faithful and going to church with them and going to Bible studies and learning, and then uh, and then you'll grow closer with God and reading the Bible. Reading the Bible's tough if you don't do Bible study and you don't go to church because it's hard to understand. But if you just ask that God helps you understand it, then He will too.
Hmm. So you get to Penn State, you make the phone call because your dad says you're going to be homeless and on the street, which I find funny because
Yeah,
that's where my brain goes with my children. If Fiona, my daughter, decided to leave high school at 16, and I thought, oh
yeah,
my God, what's going to happen? So she said, I have it all planned out, Daddy. I'm going to go to community college and get my 2 year degree, and I'm going to save you a lot of money so I can get a better horse.
yeah.
So day one at Penn State, what do you remember?
Well, I met my wife day
Mm-hmm.
one at orientation, so that was pretty cool. We became really good friends for 6, 7 months, and then we started dating. And she was my first real girlfriend. I never had a girlfriend before, so I was pretty
Mm.
particular in that. Um, if I was going to date somebody, I wanted to marry them. So that was my intention the whole
Mm.
time. And but day one, obviously meeting my teammates. Again, I had met Nick Nevels was my roommate. I'd met him before, but it was different now that we're going to live together. So we just getting set up and just going in and just hanging out with all our friends, playing games, and then we were rolling.
How was working with Coach Sanderson and the other coaches at Penn State? How was that different from high school? What do you remember about it?
They just have they have so many guys to work with. So um, you have to almost seek out like help if you want it. Coach Cody was my guy, so he usually takes 125 to 157, and then Coach Casey takes 165 to heavyweight. So Coach Cody was kind of my personal coach, so he was the one that was helping me with everything. Um, but yeah, I mean they have so many guys to help, and they're just in there all day wrestling. Like Coach Casey will wrestle like 5 times a day with guys that need him. So for me, I didn't really do many extra like wrestling sessions. I did every once in a while, but there's some people that I'll go in there and like want to work out like 3 times a week in the morning, where we just had one practice in the afternoon. So um, yeah, I mean the coaches just they sacrifice a lot. They sacrifice spending time with their family. They sacrifice their own personal time to be in there and help um, the wrestlers. So uh, for anything they need. So I think that's what makes them so successful is just their selflessness and trying to serve the team, trying to do what's best for the team and the program.
Mm-hmm. So you seem so like there's an intensity about you, but you seem so relaxed, and it seems that that relaxation permeates the team. What is it about the mindset in your view that's special about Penn State?
I just think everybody kind of expects to win, so we don't really get stressed because we just know we're going to win, and then we also know that our value doesn't come from winning, and it comes from God. So um, Coach Cal does a lot of mindset training, and working with a team on that. But I would say the combination of us like believing in ourselves and having faith in God at the same time, believing that we're going to win. I think that's really powerful because then people that are kind of skeptical on whether they're they think they can win, but they're not really sure. There's a lot more stress there than when you're going out and knowing you're going to win.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would be my analysis of it.
I definitely never got there. I never knew I was
Yeah.
going to win. How does the mindset of knowing one is going to win, how does that develop? Or is that a correlation with your faith in God?
I had it before. I strengthened my faith in
Mm-hmm.
God. So I kind of always had that, believing I was going to win type of mentality. And I think you just get that from like, mindset training, having people around you and that are motivating you and that are teaching you about like the proper mindset to have. And then it comes from hard work too. If you don't work hard, it's going to be harder to believe in yourself. But, when you're doing everything right, I never drank alcohol or smoked vape or did Zen or anything like that. I never try to take an edge off with anything. I was always present and trying to do the best that I could with what I was given. So um, that was like something that Jody would always say. He'd say, believe in your, and my Coach Noel from high school, he say, believe in your training. Um, they always stress that. So, um, I just believed that I trained harder than anybody else. So I was like, well, if I did this and I'm eating this way and I'm lifting this way, nobody else is doing what I'm doing. Nobody else is driving this far to go to 2 practices every day. So that was kind of where my belief came in. And then, when I knew that my conditioning was really good, so nobody could keep up with my pace. There's so much that goes into believing yourself, but I think it's just like, how are you training? I mean, but somebody could not train hard at all and still believe in themselves. So you have some guys like that. So, but I think the biggest key is believing in yourself. It's not how much training you do, but I think it's easier to believe in your training if you're doing the best possible things, you know, in your
Mm.
training.
But on the other hand, it seems to me that the focus was quality, not just quantity. Like you made mention of one practice a day. and not doing extra sessions for you. And it sounds to me like you made the most of that one practice, and then maybe you lifted in addition to that. I don't know.
Well, in high school, I would do pretty much 2 practices a day. I'd do I'd wake up and go maybe lift at 6 a.m. and then not every day, but some days a week I'd lift at 6 a.m. Go to class from 7:20 till 2:30. Practice from 3 to 5. High school practice. Then I'd drive an hour or an hour and a half to practice, mainly an hour to Young Guns. And then I would go 7:30 to 9, do extra stuff, and come home, be home at 11, and just do that pretty much every day. So when I got to college, I was doing extra workouts at night. My redshirt year with Shakur and Bo and Neville's and those guys. But then our coaches just told us to, and I made the most of every workout. I always worked hard and wrestled hard and had fun at the same time, experimenting. But when our coaches kind of told us to not do that, especially like when we weren't red shirts anymore and when we were actually competing, because they had a plan for us. So like for us, it was just trust the coaches and trust their plan in us, and then just make the most out of your practices. Because recovery gets really big when you get older.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, it wasn't really as important.
Gotcha. Yeah, those are some pretty full days. And if you're getting home at 11, not a lot of
Yeah.
time to sleep, really, even.
No. I mean, I slept pretty much the same. I always slept like 11 to 6 or 11 to 5:45.
Mm-hmm.
So it was consistent. Some nights I'd get home a little bit earlier if I went to Math Factory. I'd get home at 10:15, and I'd get a little bit more sleep.
But the competition wasn't as good there.
It was different. I mean, I still had good competition. I still had good guys to wrestle with both places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So eventually, your college career, super impressive, as I mentioned, 117-3, 3 championships, and but for one guy, 4 championships. How do you feel about your college career? Like I asked you about it before we started talking, but like I know you wanted to be a 4-time champ, and we always seek perfection. I like to say we never get it. But when you look back at your college career, how do you feel about it these days?
I feel good about it. I don't really. I think that everything happened the way that God wanted it to happen. My loss my freshman year in the finals. Just at that point, I'd placed a lot of value in winning and losing, and but then I realized it's kind of like fleeting. So, but every time I've lost, I got a lot better. So, I'd fun in my college career, and I think that it was really successful. And I'm kind of happy of the way everything went. Obviously, I would have liked to win 4, but I don't really have any like regrets or anything, or I don't really feel any like negative ways about it
Mm-hmm.
now.
What's your focus these days?
Just training. I'm an alternate for the Olympics, so if anything happens to Dake, he gets hurt or anything, I have to be ready and get ready to go over to Paris. But if not, then I'm just going to be there trying to help and to train. And I actually have a jiu-jitsu match coming up in 2 weeks, so I'm looking forward to that. Just doing some different stuff, but jiu-jitsu, I got into that like kind of last year, 2 years ago, and I like doing it. So I'm looking forward to that match.
Where do you get your training for jiu-jitsu?
Well, I haven't really trained much. My buddy John is a purple belt, so we went in Saturday night and drilled some stuff, and then Bo has helped me with a couple things. But I do definitely need to train more because I haven't really trained much at all. I just kind of use my wrestling. So
How's Bo's jujitsu? I hear a lot about it.
Bo has good jujitsu. He has really good wrestling, obviously. So, in his wrestling style, he was really good on top. So, he's gotten pretty good at jujitsu. He has good like defense. Not a lot. He never really gets submitted. Um, but I think that he can definitely, um, he hasn't really like experimented with like leg entanglements and some of the more higher level. I think he focuses on the things that are going to help him in MMA, which is getting the back and getting chokes from there, getting arm triangle, getting into mount, stuff like that, where he doesn't really focus as much on like heel hooks or uh, leg locks or anything like that.
Hmm.
From what I've seen, but I mean, I'm also not training with him every day, so maybe he does focus on those things. But I don't think those are probably most beneficial for the UFC to focus on those things rather than focusing on the more realistic
Hmm.
positions.
Are you thinking you might do something like that, or do you have other plans professionally? Or
I have a we started a company, me and a couple of my friends, called Athletes Ocean. We're an instructional video company, basically a wrestling technique app, and we spend a lot of our time doing that. So that is probably my number one priority right now. Just focusing on growing that in the jujitsu community as well. Um, so that's a lot of fun. And then maybe someday I'll fight, but I'm not sure. I'm definitely going to keep competing, you know, in whatever that may be. So, but I'm definitely open to fighting later on. But right now, I just want to focus on growing my company and keep training. So
how'd you start your company?
me and one of my teammates from Penn State, Gino Morelli, he was around a 12 at 165. He got his master's in business at Penn State, and he was working down at Exxon in Houston in finance, and I think he wanted to work with like a hedge fund in New York too, and he had some good job opportunities. Um, but he had a spiritual experience with God, and God kind of showed up and um, told him to basically quit his job and to start something else, start his own company. So he was actually in state college, and I was telling him about a company that I wanted to start, and he's like, I kind of had the same idea. So we just started working on it together, and spent a lot of time so far working together. And then we brought on a few other guys, Eric and John, and we just recently brought on the uh, designer Jack. So we have our we have right now, obviously a website and a progressive web app where you can download the app from Safari. But we're coming out with an app on the App Store, which will be ready for us to start testing in a couple weeks, which is
Hmm.
exciting.
So, are you marketing to individuals or to clubs, or how? What?
So we have individual instructional videos that people can buy. So for the first year and a half, we mainly marketed to individuals just to buy these instructional videos. Um, you know, we just created a feature for teams called, and this could be for clubs or teams, called Team Spaces. So I essentially put together a 14 instructional package that covers every single necessary wrestling position. I include freestyle courses. It's probably like 12 hours of instructional content, and for an individual to buy access to all those, it'd be around $1,000. But we're selling it at $40 per student, so coaches can get bulk access. If a coach has a team of 30, they can buy 30 spots, and then they could basically just need to put their students' names and emails in, and they'll get a password reset email. Once they reset their password, they'll have access to all the content with their own username and login. So we're kind of selling to teams bulk access instructional videos, and I include free practice plans with any purchase too. So that helps the coaches, plan their practices better and everything like that. So um, that's kind of, I think, been better for us because coaches can provide their whole team with better opportunities. The opportunity that I had and that wrestling has provided for me has been immense. So, and if I had access to something like this, I would have definitely been using it. So, for me, I had to drive an hour and a half each way to practice to find good technique, an hour each way. So, but nowadays kids can get access right on their phone. So that's what we're trying to provide, and we've gotten really good feedback so far. So
That sounds revolutionary. I mean, my coach never wrestled. And so he would go
yeah,
far and wide to try and figure stuff out. He would read books and then try to show us technique in the room. And, he would say, look, you're not going to be the best technique wise, but you'll be in better shape than anyone you wrestle. And that was probably true.
yeah,
Imagine how much better we could have been, though, with someone like you.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So, and the guys on Ocean have the best technique in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, to get access to those guys, it's not like, it's just some random state champ somewhere. These are multiple time NCAA champs. You know, hopefully two more Olympic champs. We have Spencer Lee and Zane Rutherford on there. But a lot of the Penn State guys got like Keegan O'Toole, one of the best cradle guys in the country. So we have ton of different instructionals on there, and for girls too, we have Amit Allure, Kylie Welker, Kennedy Blades, Macy Kilty, girls like that, some of the best girls in the world. So we're really trying to just continue to film more and provide more information for USA Wrestling, and help USA Wrestling grow as a whole.
That's great. Congratulations on your initiative. I know that can't be easy.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah, it's fun. A lot of hard work, but it's fun.
So, could you see yourself, in addition to this content you're putting out, could you see yourself as a coach someday or no?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think someday I'll coach. Probably won't be anytime soon, but that's something I definitely want to do um, later on. So
Well, we've covered a lot in a relatively short period of time. Is there anything
yeah,
that you might like to say, or is there anything you might like to ask me, or like like I said, super impressed with your career. Me personally, I'm just a fan of wrestling, and like you were always so self-contained and so like cool on the mat and like such a gentleman and everything. And I see that in the program, and I think I'm not alone. I think I speak for almost everyone when they say they admire the Penn State program. People might resent it that you're so good, but it's
yeah,
just professional jealousy or whatever. But
yeah. No, I think you know I think I'm all good. Yeah, I definitely am grateful to have been part of the Penn State program and to be a part of all the clubs that I have been growing up, and it's been fun. So
well, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope our paths will cross again.
yeah, yeah. Thanks, Pat. I
My
appreciate it.
pleasure. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye
You
bye.
too.
If you enjoy the most fascinating podcast in the world, please follow on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, and follow on Apple Podcast.